By the late 1990s, the sports car world was evolving. Lightweight analog machines were slowly giving way to heavier, more technology-laden Grand Tours, but Toyota, a company at the height of its performance dominance, had one last trick up its sleeve before bidding farewell to its beloved mid-engine marvel, which turned out to be the 1997 Toyota MR2 GTS. We're going to take a look at the history of this car and then take it over to the Tokyo Expressway to test to see how it handles versus other cars in the game that we've already tested. We're also going to take a look at the engine swap variant that uses the Audi R8 motor from the V8 version. So stick with us and we'll see how these cars handle. The second generation MR2, known as the SW20, debuted in 1989 as the radical departure from its predecessor, where the first gen AW11 was a nimble, lightweight wedge inspired by Lotus. The SW20 was something else entirely, a sculpted, exotic-looking machine with serious performance credentials. Often dubbed the baby Ferrari for its resemblance to the 348, it offered a mid-engine layout, rear-wheel drive, and a range of high-revving four-cylinder engines to choose from. But the real magic was happening in Japan, where Toyota offered the MR2 GTS, a high-performance variant powered by the legendary 3S GTE turbocharged inline four-cylinder. By 1997, in its final iteration, the MR2 GTS was at its peak, delivering 245 horsepower through a 5-speed manual transmission and making it one of the most potent mid-engine cars of its era. This engine was also used in the Toyota Supra Castrol Toms race car, where most people think that would actually be a 2JZ. They swapped in this engine because it was a more advanced and lighter, block than what was in that 2JZ at the time. The MR2 GTS wasn't just a faster version of an already capable sports car. It was Toyota's statement that a true driver's car should challenge and reward in equal measure. It retained the MR2's notoriously sharp handling, but also its reputation for snap oversteer, which earned it respect and fear among enthusiasts. With a curb weight hovering around 2,756 pounds, the MR2 GTS could sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour in under 5.5 seconds, rivaling far more expensive European sports cars at the time. Thanks to its lightweight chassis, torsion limited slip differential, and precise steering, it became a favorite for Japan's mountain pass racers, or toge racers, and today's track day purists alike. By 1999, Toyota was shifting gears. Stricter emissions regulations and changing market demands spelled the end for the MR2 GTS, along with its high-performance siblings like the Toyota Supra, Celica GT4, and Chaser Tourer V. The mid-engine sports car formula would return in the early 2000s with the MR2 Spider, or MRS in the States, which was the ZZW30 platform, but it was a different beast, lighter and more nimble, but without the turbocharged brutality of the SW20. Today, the 97 MR2 GTS stands as a swan song of an era when Toyota built performance cars with no compromises. It remains a cult classic, revered for its turbocharged punch and mid-engine balance, and head-turning design as well. Whether dominating the streets of Japan in the late 90s or carving up the canyon roads today, the MR2 GTS is a reminder of Toyota's golden age, a time when driving pleasure came first and turbochargers were king. If you've made it this far, please like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out. And if you like this livery, you can find it by searching for pine. I was playing with angle layering and it just ended up looking like a block of wood that was carved out, so I just went with it. But let's go ahead and take it to Tokyo and see how it handles our lap. When you fully build out the MR2 with the Toyota engine it came with, it ends up with 730 performance points. The engine will produce 464 horsepower and 325 foot-pounds of torque. The weight after weight reduction brings the car down to 2,183 pounds. So it actually produces plenty of power for this chassis. The top speed was set around 195 miles per hour. So I'm sure with tweaking the aerodynamics, and if you really wanted to stretch its legs, you could get it to brake 200. But 195 is making this car more than capable. It does have a nice light front end. It can feel a little disconnected at times though, and then when that oversteer does kick in, it can be instantly a handful. So you'll actually drive this car with a little restraint, but it is a lot of fun. I've had this car, for the longest time, and I haven't really gotten around to tuning it because I found it difficult to drive when I first got behind the wheel. But this tune that I have in there now, which you'll be able to see at the end, is pretty capable. And that's for the suspension setup is for both vehicles. The twitchiness of this car does translate into the tires though, and you will see a little bit of extra wear compared to some of the other cars we've tested. We saw about 20% wear to both the front and the rear tires. But the fun factors kicked up as well, because it is a little bit of a handful to drive, and it will kind of twitch on you. Fuel economy with the Toyota motor wasn't bad, and we saw about 6 laps in our testing. So it's, it'll get you through most races, and if you just change the tires, you can bring this into a Group 4 class real easy. We crossed the line at 1 minute 58 seconds, .869, and that put it right behind the Skyline GTR from 1970s with the engine swap, and just in front of the GT4 Toyota Celica. So not a bad place overall. The BY8 engine out of the Audi R8 was actually the first engine I ever unlocked through roulette tickets, but putting it in this car, it amplified the issues it has. So that snap oversteer was much more extreme. The pushing in the corners was much more extreme, but I think this car is pretty well dialed in now. You will want to have it lifted a little bit. I usually bring my cars down to around 10 mils before bottom, but this car under braking, if you have it that low, I think you want to put it around 25 mils above. But if you put it that low and you hit the brakes, it will snap on you for sure. This engine can also be installed in the Audi TTS Coupe, but when I first built this car, that was not an option. Fully built, the MR2 ends up with 791 performance points, with the engine producing 795 horsepower and 433 foot-pounds of torque. So not quite doubling, but getting real close there. The weight kicked up a little bit as well, bringing the overall weight to 2,224 pounds, but the top speed ended up picking up all the way to 225 miles per hour. So once you get this car tamed, it is a blast to drive with this engine swap. It can be a little bit of a handful, but you want to be light on the throttle when you're driving this thing. Tire wear didn't change too much. We saw the similar 20% wear to the front, and it went to about 25% wear to the rear, so a little bit of extra abuse. The fuel economy was a little bit worse as well, and we saw about 5 laps on a single tank, but it's worth it for the extra speed you get out of the car. We ended up crossing the line at 1 minute 52.562 seconds, which put it right behind the Jaguar XJ220 and just in front of that Tom's Castrol Supra from 1997 that actually used the engine from this original car.